On today's show, Lonzo Ball met with the media for the first time as a member of the Cavs yesterday. We'll talk about that. Plus, Tyrese Proctor's initial impressions of Cleveland, and could a reunion with Kevin Love be in the cards? We'll talk about all that stuff and so much more in today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name's Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube as we get started here, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is $150 in bonus bets when that first $5 bet wins. The Cleveland Cavaliers held their first media availability of the offseason on Monday morning at Cleveland Clinic Courts. The Cavs had a summer league practice, and we will talk about that a little bit because Omar Cook talked, who is the head coach of the Cavs Summer League. Tyrese Proctor talked, of course, who was the Cavs' first draft selection, number 49 overall in last month's NBA draft. But the big story of the day was that Lonzo Ball met with the media for the very first time since the Cavs acquired him via trade with the Chicago Bulls before the start of free agency over 10 days ago at this point. Ball was in town. He was at the facility, and he said that he spent a lot of the day in doctor's office, I presume, for a physical just to get checked over, make sure everything is good. And all indications are that they are. And there are a few things that I really took away from this first meeting with Lonzo. And the thing that stood out to me the most is Lonzo Ball right now seems like somebody who is all about one thing. And that one thing is winning. That was the first thing that was brought up. That was something that he talked about the most. It wasn't the only thing he talked about. Of course, we asked him questions about other things. I think there are a lot of fair questions about his health, how he's feeling, considering all the injuries that he's gone through over the past several years. But he's about winning. That is the thing that I think is very clear and evident that came across from his media availability on Monday. He is somebody that has been on playoff teams, but because of injuries, he has never actually played in the playoffs. And I do think that he recognizes, and it was very clear to me coming through his answers, I do think that he recognizes that he is in a really, really good spot. He's in a very good situation. He's been put on a very, very good team, one that has championship aspirations, or I guess more accurately would be championship expectations, would probably be a better way to say that. But he talked a lot about winning, and that's the thing that matters to him. I do think it was also pretty clear and pretty easy to tell during this media availability that Lonzo Ball loves basketball. Like that is, I don't know if that is like his first priority in life. I don't know him. I can't pretend to say that one way or the other, but basketball really seems like it is something that is very, very, very important to him, which is something I do think is call me crazy, a really good quality to have in an NBA player. Like this is going to be something that I look at him as somebody who I expect to have a very strong work ethic, somebody that I expect to hear a lot of positive things about as a basketball player. And I really think coming out of this, and I think if you've been listening to the show over the last week and a half or so since the Cavs made the trade for Lonzo, I think you kind of know where I come out on this, that this is something that I do think will ultimately be a good move for the Cavs. But there's that gigantic caveat of if he's healthy, because that is ultimately the big if here. Like when Lonzo Ball is healthy, he's a pretty good basketball player. It's just Lonzo Ball hasn't only played 70 games in the last 4 seasons combined, so he hasn't been healthy very frequently, mostly because of a knee issue, but also a wrist issue that cost him the back half of last season. So he did say that his body is right now where he wants it to be. That, of course, was what a lot of the questions that we had for him is that, where are you at physically right now? What has this journey been like? Because he played 35 games his first year with the Chicago Bulls, and the Bulls were a very good team for those 35 years. He had a knee injury, missed the rest of that season, and then missed the remaining 2 seasons. He played the front half of the season, and the Chicago Bulls were certainly, I think, cautious is a fair way to put it, with his minutes, with his workload, with easing him back into being an NBA player. But he did get to the point where he was maybe not an every night 30-minute a night guy, but I do believe he did have some 30-minute games in there where it's not as if he was on a minutes restriction every single night. And I would expect the Cavs to be somewhat cautious with his minutes load, maybe not early in the season, because I do think it is fair to expect, considering the timeline that we got for Darius Garland when he had his toe surgery, I do think it's fair to expect that maybe Darius Garland shouldn't be playing 35 minutes a night. Not that he'll play that much anyways, but I don't think a full minutes load for Darius Garland is necessarily going to be something that is in the cards at the start of the season, just considering the initial return to play timeline that we received from the Cavs when he did have surgery. So maybe he'll play a little bit more early, but I wouldn't anticipate him playing more than 25 minutes a night for the entire season. And I think that could be a good recipe for him. But he did say one of the things that he was very happy with last year, of course, the wrist injury is what kept him out from the end of February on. And I did hear that had Chicago made the playoffs, there was a good chance that Lonzo would have been able to play in that first round series that would have been against either or I think only the Cavs, because I believe they were a 9-10 team. So had the Bulls faced off with the Cavs in the first round, Lonzo Ball could have played in that series theoretically. Now, of course, they lost in the play-in, so that didn't happen, and we will never know whether or not he would have been able to. But one of the things that Lonzo talked about is he was happy with the way his knee responded to everything last year. Once he started playing, he was, I think, a little nervous, a little cautious, it's fair to say, but he was happy with how his knee responded, and he really didn't have issues with it. Now, we'll see what that looks like having, a full season, where this past year it was October until the end of February, where the expectations for Lonzo Ball and the Cavs this year are going to be October until the end of June. That is going to be the expectation for him. So I do think that is something that maybe monitoring his minutes is a wise idea for the Cavs, a wise idea for Lonzo Ball personally. And I know it is. Listen, I thought Lonzo had a very good press conference on Monday. I did. And I know it's very easy to win these press conferences when you're a new person in a new place, where I think fans, for the most part, are pretty excited about the Lonzo Ball addition. And I do think the fact that he has a very interesting story, not just the injury stuff, but the fact that he's been in the spotlight for a very, very long time, being not only just a former number 2 overall pick, but I think that family, the Ball family, between Lonzo, LaMelo, even his brother, who is in the music industry now, his father, LeVar, all of those people have been in the spotlight for a very long time. So this is a very interesting story, and I do think that he knows how to do this stuff. This is not the first time he's at a press conference. It's not the first time he's been in that setting. So I don't think like him winning the press conference is a big deal, but you would much rather have him win it than lose it. And I do think that he won it. And just coming out of this, I think the Cavs are going to, if Lonzo Ball stays healthy, I think the Cavs are going to get a very, very, very good version of him. I think he's somebody that is very motivated. As I mentioned at the start, I think winning is the thing that is first and foremost on his mind. I think that is what is most important to him. Basketball is obviously a very, very high priority for him. And he is somebody that I think can help the Cavs. That's the other thing too, that, we can talk about the ifs of, if he stays healthy, what does he look like? But I ultimately think the thing that he brings is he allows the Cavs to morph into a better version of themselves. Because with Lonzo Ball on the floor, and one of the things he was asked about, I believe Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com was one who asked him about this, but Lonzo was asked about, the defensive end of the floor, because throughout his career, he has been somebody that has been graded out as a pretty good defender, and he is a bigger guard. He is not a defensive liability. He has never been a defensive liability, even as he worked his way back from injury, he was not somebody that was a defensive target. He's able to get around on that end of the floor. He's able to do a lot of really good things on that end of the floor. He made a comment that, obviously when he was growing up at Chino Hills and playing alongside his brother LaMelo in high school, I believe he called it a reckless style of basketball. And if you remember some of those YouTube videos or videos on Instagram or maybe even Vine at that time, oh my goodness, I can't believe how long ago that was. But like there would be videos of LaMelo pulling up from half court and whatnot. And Lonzo wanted to make the point that, maybe not everybody on the floor was playing defense at the time, but he certainly was. And I think that is obviously a good thing for the Cavs, that he is a good defender. I think the level of versatility that he provides to the Cavs is lineup flexibility first and foremost, where now I know that playing Sam Merrill at the 3 didn't necessarily go all that well last year. Now it's a much easier thing to play him at the 3 in lineups that have Lonzo Ball, because Lonzo Ball can defend a lot of different wings across the NBA. I think that you can play him with Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. And I think that he is somebody that I think is really going to help Evan Mobley flourish on the offensive end of the floor. And just overall, I think that because he is a two-way player, and I have been harping on this for the last week, because Lonzo Ball is a two-way player, he brings a lot of things that the Cavs have to be really happy are there, because he's not somebody that when he's healthy and when the Cavs get to the playoffs, he's not somebody that can be played off the floor. He's not somebody that's going to be a liability on one end or the other. You do have room for that in an NBA rotation. Like Darius Garland, I struggle to call him a liability defensively because he does put forth the effort. He's never going to be somebody that I think is a good defender, but I don't think he's necessarily an awful defender either. But he's somebody that teams are going to target. So you can have room for some of that, but not much of that. Lonzo is not that. Lonzo is somebody that is going to be a very strong role player for the Cavs, and he's not somebody that opponents can target. And conversely, he's not somebody that opponents can leave alone when the Cavs have the basketball. So overall, came away pretty impressed with what Lonzo had to say. The fact that winning is such a big deal for him, the fact that basketball is such a big deal for him, I think this was a very good press conference. And I think ultimately, if Lonzo Ball can stay healthy, big if, but if he can stay healthy, I think that this is going to be one of the best moves, maybe the best move that the Cavs make all summer, is trading for Lonzo Ball. That's day one takeaway from day one press conference with him. But I think overall, this is going to be a really, really good thing for the Cavs. We also, on Monday, got to meet somebody else, Tyrese Proctor, the number 49 overall pick for the Cavs. He was their first draft selection this year. He spoke with us for the very first time. I'll tell you what he had to say. Plus, we will talk a little bit, just a little bit, about the summer league that's ahead for the Cavs right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the very best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action, right? Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Being on FanDuel is a lot better than getting sunburned at the beach. And maybe, just maybe, on Monday, you bet the Cleveland Guardians to beat the Houston Astros. The Guardians, losers of 10 straight games. Well, I am recording this. It is 10:53 on Monday night. And folks, they did it. I just got the notification. The Guardians beat the Houston Astros 7-5. Maybe you bet it on FanDuel. Maybe you put $5 on FanDuel for your first FanDuel bet because you thought, you know what, today is the day. One, I admire the confidence because I would not have had that confidence. But two, you also, if that was your first $5 bet and it hit, and it did hit because the Guardians have won in the win column for the first time in what feels like a month and a half. If you bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets. So again, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5, get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you again for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us the 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend, tell a friend about the show. On Monday, we also met Tyrese Proctor, of course, the Cavs' first draft selection this year. He was taken number 49 overall out of Duke. He is somebody that is a rarity at this point or at that point, I should say, in the draft, where he is not on a two-way contract with the Cavs. Most of the guys that are selected really beyond 45, I think is a fair way to put it. It's rare to not be on a two-way or be a stash guy like Niang, who is a stash guy that will be on the Cavs Summer League roster, but is not going to be on the Cavs this year. So Proctor talked a lot about a lot of things. And one of the things that stuck out to me is how prepared he feels for this situation. And of course, you're not going to know what you're getting into in the NBA until you actually get into it. There's no way to simulate being in the NBA before you're in the NBA. But with Proctor going to Duke, with Proctor playing on a team that was as talented as this Duke team was, the fact that he was one of 5 guys in Duke's starting 5 that was drafted this year is something that he feels really did prepare him for the NBA. And that is something that I don't think should be taken for granted, because it is difficult to, I think, at times evaluate guys coming out of college, especially when, 1, the competition they're playing, maybe not always that great, but 2, the pieces around them aren't necessarily very good. And I compare, and I'm not going to compare Tyrese Proctor and Jalen Tyson as players because they're not comparable. They're very different players. But let's compare their situations, where Jalen Tyson at Cal was on a team that was not very good his final year before he entered the draft. And of course, the Cavs selected him at number 20 overall last year. At Cal, Tyson was tasked with doing a lot of different things. He essentially was the team there because they were not a very good team. Where at Duke, Tyrese Proctor played alongside 4 other guys that were drafted, 3 of whom were drafted in the lottery. So he played on a very good team. His role was a little bit lesser. And I think that for coming into this situation, that is something that makes his adjustment, his life in the NBA, a little bit easier. And one of the things that I do think is in Proctor's benefit is that during his time at Duke, and he spent 3 years playing for the Blue Devils, during his time there, he played a lot of different roles, and he played alongside a lot of really good players. And he did mention that too, not just the fact that the whole starting 5 this year was drafted, but he's somebody that he entered college with Derek Lively, who has had a pretty good first couple of years in the NBA. He played alongside Jared McCain, who I thought before he hurt his knee last year probably would have won the NBA's Rookie of the Year award for the Philadelphia 76ers because he was very good in the first half of the season before he had that knee injury. Kyle Filipowski, who went in the second round last year. So he's played alongside a lot of guys that are in the NBA right now. And the fact that the role that he had when he was a freshman, where he was more of an on-ball creator, is different than the role that he had as a junior, where he was somebody that was doing some stuff on the basketball, but also some off-ball stuff, some different catch and shoot opportunities, and improved as a shooter each and every year as his role changed, I do think is a really good thing. Because when he's in the NBA and when he's playing alongside Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland, and we will see what this year looks like for him, wouldn't necessarily bank on him getting a ton of playing time, but you don't know what he's going to look like. You don't know what he's going to turn into. But as I look at this, I think, okay, well, I do think the fact that he's got experience in different roles is a very good thing for him. I think that will make the adjustment to the NBA easier because he's not necessarily trying to learn a new role. Where when I look at Jalen Tyson last year trying to find a way to fit in, he is being asked with the Cavs to do something much different, carry a much different burden than he was when he was in college, because he had to do everything for Cal. Where when he was on the floor with the Cavs last year, he had to kind of fit into a role that he maybe hasn't been in before. Where with Proctor, he's been in these different roles, but the fact that he's been a secondary player, because in that starting 5, he was the 5th guy to get picked. The 4 other guys, maybe not all better than him last year, maybe not all going to be better than him in the future, but they were all drafted ahead of him. So the fact that he can be that secondary basketball player, I think is something that bodes really well for him adjusting to life in the NBA, adjusting to playing alongside all NBA caliber players like Donovan Mitchell, like Evan Mobley, because the one thing that he said he can bring to this team is shooting. He's a very confident guy when it comes to his shot. I'm very interested to see what it looks like in Summer League. I'm fascinated to get my eyes on him a little bit more at practice on Tuesday, what he looks like in some post-practice work, getting shots up. And then I will be very interested to see how he looks when Summer League arrives later this week. I really want to see what that shot looks like. I want to see how good it looks, because if he can shoot that 40% that he made at Duke, and that is probably not the most fair expectation for a rookie in the NBA, but if he can do that, the Cavs will find a place for him to be able to play, because you can never have too much shooting on the floor. So what he looks like, I think, will be a big thing to watch for in Summer League when it gets started later this week. On Monday, we also talked to Omar Cook, who is the Cavs Summer League head coach. He has been on the Cavs coaching staff for a couple of years now. I do not remember if this past season was his second or third year on the Cavs coaching staff, but he was a holdover from JB Bickerstaff. So he coached under Bickerstaff and then was on Kenny Atkinson's staff this past season as well. He's going to be the head coach of the Cavs in the Summer League. Very cool opportunity for Omar, who, of course, was a big-time college basketball player, too. Go look up Omar Cook highlights, because he could play some basketball, certainly. But I do wonder if this experience, which unquestionably will be good for him, but I wonder if this experience is going to lead to him having a bigger role on the coaching staff with the Cavs now that Jordan Ott is gone. I do wonder if that's going to be the case, because to my knowledge, that seat has not been filled. That is not the Cavs, to my knowledge, still have an assistant coach opening, but maybe Omar Cook is going to be taking on more responsibility. I don't know, but that's just a thought that I had coming out of his first media availability as a coach, I believe. I cannot remember him ever speaking in a group setting before, but certainly somebody that I think Cavs fans should be excited to see how he grows as a coach, because I do think he's very passionate about it. I think that he's somebody that wants to be really great at this, and I think this will be a cool opportunity for him. Now, on Monday, there was a trade that kind of came out of left field, and it might somehow, some way affect the Cavs. We're going to talk about it next, right here on Locked On Cavs. So Monday morning, there was a trade in the NBA. It was a 3-team trade that did not involve the Cleveland Cavaliers. The trade involved Miami Heat, the Utah Jazz, and the LA Clippers. John Collins was sent from Utah to LA. Norm Powell was sent from LA to Miami. And Kyle Anderson and old friend Kevin Love were sent from Miami to Utah as part of this trade. I do think that this is a really good trade for the Heat. I'm interested to see what kind of contract extension they're going to have to sign Norm Powell to, because I think that is why he was available. I think that's why the Clippers wanted to move him, because they did not want to pay him. But I still think the Heat are just like kind of pretty mid right now. I don't think they have, anything. They have like 3 above average players, and the rest is very So I wouldn't necessarily think that this impacts things there. But the thing that impacts the Cavs here is Kevin Love was in the trade. Of course, Kevin Love spent 9 years in Cleveland before he eventually did reach a buyout with the Cavs and then signed with the Miami Heat. It is pretty hard for me to close my eyes and envision Kevin Love wearing a Utah Jazz uniform. I can't do it. I don't see that happening. He is, of course, on the last year of a contract. He does, I believe, intend to play this upcoming season. So naturally, my mind went to, well, is Kevin Love going to get bought out? I would imagine so. If he does get bought out, could Kevin Love reunite with the Cavs? Could he be back in Cleveland for one last go around, for one final season with the Cavs? And I don't think it's something we should rule out right now. I don't know what his relationship is like with the organization. The organization has said publicly that they're going to retire Kevin Love's number when he retires from the NBA. I think that is well deserved. I think that is how things should be. I think that nobody else should wear the number 0 in Cavs franchise history for what he meant to this team, the fact that he was on the 2016 championship team. He was a very, very good player for the Cavs for 9 seasons. I know it maybe didn't end the way that everybody would have wanted it to on both sides, but could he come back? Again, I wouldn't rule it out, but I look at this as right now the Cavs have 13 guys on their roster. And historically, at least in the last few seasons, the Cavs have started the year with 14 guys. They like to have an open roster spot. That is the way that Kobe Altman has shown he likes to operate when building a roster. And that is even at times when they have not been a team in the tax. They have not been a team even close to the tax. They've still liked to have 14 guys on the roster. Well, now the Cavs are not near the tax because they're way past the tax. They are in the second apron. So they've got 13 guys on the roster, and they could carry 15, but I envision they'll carry 14. So essentially, I think this could potentially come down to Tristan Thompson or Kevin Love, because again, I don't think they're going to carry 15. And if they were to add a 15th, and they added a 15th very late in the season last year, it was Chuma Okeke, who was, I believe, signed in late March. Maybe you do that at the end of the year, as the Cavs have done a number of different times. But I don't think that there's necessarily room for both Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love. I think one of them makes sense. Tristan Thompson, when he last spoke with the media following the end of the season, he spoke like somebody who very much wanted to keep playing. Kevin Love, I believe, is planning on playing next year. So I do think you wonder, is this something that could be in the Cavs' future? I don't know. This is something that I think is something to keep an eye on, if nothing else. But I don't think that both Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love will be on the roster. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I think that right now, with having 13 guys, the Cavs will at some point sign somebody else. Maybe it's going to be Kevin Love. Maybe it's going to be Tristan Thompson, but maybe there will be a reunion with a different 2016 champion on the Cavs in Kevin Love in the near future. Again, I would guess that he's going to get bought out by Utah. I just can't envision him playing for that franchise with the direction they're heading in. And if he is bought out, it would not surprise me if there's mutual interest between he and the Cavs to finish his career in Cleveland, where certainly the best days that he had were. But thank you for making Locked on Cavs your first listen today. And every day you can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, or anywhere else. Make sure to drop us a 5-star rating, leave us a nice review, and of course, be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked on Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell. And I'll be back tomorrow talking more about the Cleveland Cavaliers.